Well, good afternoon, everyone. It really is my pleasure to introduce our next keynote speaker, FCC Commissioner Geoffrey Starks. Since the Commissioner joined the FCC in January of 2019, he's focused on ensuring that every American benefits from modern communications technologies. He has truly made closing the digital divide his top priority, and he's worked to expand broadband to low-income and rural communities. During the last year alone, he has crisscrossed the country to raise awareness about the ACP. And he's really focused on communities that might otherwise be left behind. Now, the Commissioner has also led efforts to ensure that our communications networks are secure and that they're built on safe and reliable supply chains. And importantly for us, he's recognized and championed the power of 5G to address a wide variety of societal challenges, whether they be educational disparities or climate change. And I will say, for any of you who have had a chance to meet the Commissioner, he brings a warmth and a genuineness to every discussion that really grounds our sometimes abstract policy discussions in the real-world outcomes for consumers. So we're really fortunate that he's joined us today at Mobile World Congress. Let's give a warm welcome to FCC Commissioner Geoffrey Starks.
Well, thank you all for being here. Glad to be back in person, of course, and certainly to be able to look folks in the eyes and say hello and hear what's going on. So good afternoon. Thank you, of course, Scott, for that generous introduction. About 4 years have passed since I last addressed Mobile World Congress here, and let me set the scene. It was 2019. We were in Los Angeles, not here in Las Vegas. You could feel, though, truly the optimism that was kind of buzzing around, certainly on the floor. It was real. 3GPP had moved on to its second 5G release. 5G devices had just begun to hit the consumer market, and 4 nationwide carriers had already completed or announced limited 5G rollouts, most of them focused, of course, in the first instance on millimeter wave. On the show floor, though, in particular, you could barely go afoot without hearing about new use cases that were being dreamed up. 5G is going to enhance what it was going to enable. On the regulatory front, Congress had just enacted the Mobile Now Act, which tasked the FCC and NTIA to find 255 megahertz of midband, a modest target, of course, that we surpassed with quite relative ease. We were also beginning to confront the challenges of insecure equipment in our wireless networks. As I wrote in an op-ed at the time, a few weeks before the show, we were exploring Open RAN as well as part of the longer-term solution while addressing what the immediate need was. I coined it, as some of you may know in the room, find it, fix it, fund it. It has now become called rip and replace, but it doesn't have that same, I call it find it, fix it, fund it. But certainly to fast forward to now, to today. 4 years later, we've accomplished a significant amount, but we're still feeling more unsettled in the wireless space. Macro questions remain. How revolutionary will 5G become? And by when? Which applications will have the greatest impact for consumers and give the country and the wireless industry a return on its 5G investment? At the same time, we're seeing new questions emerge with new challenges, including the rip and replace shortfall. What does the future hold for regional, for rural providers and some of the subscribers that they serve? What does, of course, AI mean? Something that I'm thinking about, no doubt. Each of you in your own way here is thinking about either in your lane for your consumers, for your clients as well, in the network, in the business, and certainly beyond. So I can't tell you what tomorrow has in store. Today's been a day for news already. But if you're looking for a prediction, amidst all of the uncertainty, you can take this to the bank. For next generation wireless, 5G and 6G, of course, soon enough, I believe the best is yet to come. So let's start with some numbers. Since the dawn of 5G, US carriers have invested massively in the wireless networks. Over the last 3 years, they've spent approximately $108.5 billion at the FCC spectrum auctions alone, even more on RAN equipment, on other aspects of their own network deployment. By the end of 2022, they had launched 5G in more than 500 US cities, a 70% year-over-year increase, enough, importantly, critically, to surpass China, the previous leader in this world metric. That momentum, the good news is, it continues to build. In the first quarter of 2023, 14 million 5G connections came online in North America, and 5G is now on track to become the dominant cellular technology within just a few years on a total connection basis. It turns out that here in the United States, we are good. We are good at building new technologies. We're good at building them quickly. But we're not just prioritizing that speed. We're also prioritizing equitable 5G build-out that reaches every community, everywhere, including critically those that are in rural America. Several carriers continue their march toward 5G build-out. Deadlines for some carriers that require rural coverage, either explicitly or part of just kind of their geographic math and mandate. But I'm not content to rely on those efforts alone. The information compiled, of course, from the broadband data collection shows that vast expanses of the country continue to lack 5G coverage, even at modest speeds, as modest as 7 down and 1 up. Moreover, in many areas, rural folks rely on carriers that built their networks on legacy, high-cost support. And so, in my mind, there is unfinished business on this front here at the Commission. All the way back in 2011, the FCC established the Mobility Fund to spur rural LTE deployment. It committed to providing 2 phases of funding efficiently through the reverse auction mechanism. Unfortunately, the second phase of that, of course, never happened. The story behind that is a long one, many twists, many turns that no doubt folks in the room know. But at the center of it, at the core of it, was the lack of reliable coverage data. There was quite simply too much risk in that program, relying on data that would not necessarily reach rural communities where they needed to be reached, and excluding them from funding eligibility based on the illusion that may be there that they had existing wireless coverage. And so, back in 2020, the FCC replaced the Mobility Fund with the 5G Fund to drive those deployments that presented the future of wireless connectivity. And so, to avoid repeating history, we postponed the implementation until we had a chance to better develop the data coverage map through, of course, the broadband data collection. And so with the latest version, armed now with the latest version of the National Broadband Map that went live in May, something that those of you in the FCC should be extremely proud of the hard work that went on there. And so just a few days ago, in fact, we proposed to jumpstart yet again the 5G Fund to finally deliver on the promise, the national commitment to fund rural America's next phase of wireless deployment. And so with better maps, we can more accurately, confidently determine where there's coverage, at what speeds, where there's a need for a deployment subsidy. And so we're also taking a harder look at how the program is designed. We're making sure that the $9 billion with a B, $9 billion budget established in 2020 is in fact the right one, as well as we're exploring whether we should expand eligibility to all rural areas that lack subsidized 5G service, even if they happen to have some LTE service currently in that area. This is an important one. It's an important one to me. As many of you know, I grew up in Kansas, consider myself a lifelong Kansan, and I know that in many areas, when you drive across the great state of Kansas, you do continue to find communities that don't have their connectivity needs met. And so, as you've heard me say, I believe in a very bright 5G future. I also believe firmly that all communities deserve to be a part of it. And with the 5G fund, that's the direction that we are going to go. And so, speaking for a minute on that brighter 5G future, I'd like to share a little bit on what I think are some of the yet untouched opportunities to be had here. We're already seeing consumers benefit, certainly from faster speeds, greater network capacity, and from the greater choice from home internet, from fixed 5G, fixed wireless. And when it comes to 5G's bolder promise, the green shoots, I think, are certainly hard to ignore. We're seeing private wireless deploy in factories, in hospitals, airports, stadiums, and even on those college campuses. We're seeing 5G power applications that can make U.S. manufacturing even more competitive internationally, make healthcare cheaper, more effective, make transportation safer and more efficient, and of course, something we all have on those slow, quiet days, certainly making our entertainment options more immersive. And then there are the wild cards, something that no doubt we're all going to think of collectively together. And there are a few big ones that I'd like to mention that I certainly see that are on the horizon, driven by environmental, cost, competitiveness concerns. We're seeing a broader global economic turn towards efficiency, a fundamental trend that I believe favors connected technologies. And so we're deploying 5G at a unique moment that sees both the simultaneous and rapid development of technologies like edge computing, and as I previously mentioned, AI. These technologies hold the potential to transform how we live, how we work, how we play. And they also stand to benefit substantially. Infrastructure is and always has been a driving force behind technologies and their advancement in this new era. Having the right networks in place is going to be an essential part of the success that we're going to achieve. So let me close by also offering a few more thoughts of what we can do in particular to keep the progress up. First, let's keep pushing on access, on adoption, on affordability. The Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP, has now surpassed well over 20 million, I think almost close to 21 million enrolled households. And that means more than 50 million individual Americans already benefit from this important program. I think it's imperative that we continue to build on that progress and continue to fight for a stable future for the program. As Scott mentioned, I have traveled all across. I actually traveled here to Las Vegas from Reno just yesterday, where I visited a housing authority there in Reno that has, they have almost 1,000 units, but I visited about 120 units that were in a family living center right there, and so they had a playground there in the backyard. There was a digital navigator, something that many of you have focused on. They're kind of the front wave, the very front impact folks, the boots on the ground that we have to help get folks enrolled in ACP. What we have found is that you need to be sure to get hurdles out of the way for each of these very vulnerable households. And the place that I've decided to really prioritize my time and start to set a path is on the pilot program that I have, the Your Home, Your Internet pilot program. And so I have over 23 pilot programs. I visited, like I said, Reno, and a couple weeks before that I was up in Seattle, in the Seattle Housing Authority. I visited my pilot program in Portland. And what we see as well, there are unique characteristics to each community, and each one will give us their individual feedback. Let 1,000 flowers bloom, of course. But you do also start to see some commonalities. And in particular, when I was thinking about the program, my team and I, and as we executed, in particular, the way I think about it is, in the policy world, we frequently have a lot of machinations on how we can pull the right levers, pull the right mechanisms. But this was quite simple to me, focusing on those that are in public housing. Of course, folks in this room know if you qualify for any federal low-income program, you qualify for ACP. I focused on housing because it's quite simple. If you are in low-income housing, if we are helping to get you housed, we should be able to get you connected as well. Communities all across the country have a stake in ACP's future. All 50 states have at least 15,000 households enrolled. Let me say that again. All 50 states have at least 15,000 households enrolled. 37 states have more than 100,000 enrolled. In rural America in particular, the program ACP has a tremendously strong foothold. Several thousand rural zip codes, more than 80% of non-metro counties have at least 100 households enrolled. Moreover, a recent analysis showed that the program has 230,000 more rural households enrolled than statistically would be predicted. That sounds like success to me. Importantly, ACP's significance in these areas means that its impact travels well beyond just each enrolled family. No doubt, and we have a number of folks here that serve at NTIA, which is doing tremendous work. But the BEAD program here and the synergy that you see, the hand-in-glove fit between ACP and BEAD is something that we should all be paying attention to. And ACP continues to see and help BEAD as it continues to grow and get going here. So ACP, BEAD, the 5G fund, this is our opportunity to connect every community in America, everywhere, and to give them the tools they need to succeed, the opportunity they need to succeed in the 21st century economy. Yet again, emerging technologies, as I've mentioned here, now for the third time, take note, is AI. It has raised the stakes of the conversation for all of us. AI could drive capabilities that help us compete, lead healthier, more convenient, more fulfilling lives. No American should be denied those opportunities simply because they can't access or afford a broadband connection. Similarly, AI platforms are reaching for larger, more comprehensive, more capable large language models, LLMs. And so while the question of whose data should contribute to training those LLMs is a complex and no doubt complicated question, it is a question of whose data is left out as well, could equally prove important. And so before an AI-based product or service can help you, it needs to, of course, understand and have the context of your lived experience. And so that could be much harder to do for folks who continue to find themselves on the wrong side of the digital divide. Second, let's keep on pushing on security. In 2019, I called for us to identify that insecure equipment in our networks, remove it, replace it with equipment from trusted sources. A few years later, we embarked on that process with a program with new authority under the Secure and Trusted Communications Act of 2019. I recently wrote an op-ed with Senator Peters from Michigan because the RIP and Replace program faces a substantial funding shortfall. The demand for reimbursement is about $5 billion, far outstripping the $1.9 billion that we have appropriated for the program based on those 2019 cost estimates. And so I'm hopeful that we can continue to work together to make sure that we complete the remediation process. Otherwise, we're continuing to provide our adversaries with an entry point into those U.S. networks. Critical. An approach to surveil, to launch, to amplify a cyber attack, even interrupt, of course, a military operation that my colleagues and I have talked about here too. These sorts of issues have taken on particular relevance these days. Training useful models in AI requires massive amounts of data. And as I said at our workshop at the FCC with the National Science Foundation back in July, that means that any adversary that is harvesting information stands to gain much more than just unearned commercial advantages. They're also potentially gaining the ability to learn about our behavior with precision and potentially real predictive power. And so in the wrong hands, I think that could be incredibly, incredibly dangerous. Nothing to say as well of the disastrous, truly disastrous impact that the lack of this rip and replace funding could have on our rural communities. Rural carriers provide consumers with choice. They strengthen our other networks through reciprocal roaming agreements. And importantly, they may be the only source of coverage available in many areas for rural Americans. So we need to make sure that they can continue to operate in a safe manner. Finally, we need to keep pushing on spectrum. That begins with restoring the FCC's auction authority. As I wrote jointly with my colleagues, the FCC's auctions have driven competition, unleashed new wireless technologies, allocated spectrum efficiently, and improved our security. They have helped the United States lead up and down the wireless ecosystem, from the network to the devices that use it, to the chipsets, to the software that rides on top of it. But as recent reports have shown, our economic adversaries have wireless ambitions of their own, and they are fighting tooth and nail to revive them. And so whether we're talking about auctions or building a spectrum pipeline, something that I know our friends are going to talk about here, this is exactly the wrong time for us to take our foot off the gas. So more than anything, I got to tour the floor room here earlier today. No doubt got to see some of you there and the great work that you all are working on. As I say almost all the time, at the very, very end of my remarks, and many of you know me, I am an open door commissioner. Do come and see me. Tell me what's going on in your space, in your lane. What you see, I'm eager to hear from you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here at the conference. Look forward to working with you and seeing you down the road. Thank you.